Hey guys, this week we had Simona on. She is a spiritual teacher and channeler, and we talked a lot about, well, spirits and the spiritual world and that connection.
Yep, how we communicate with spirits, the balance between light and dark and fear and love. To be honest, my brain hurts, and it was in the best possible way.
We also talked about predictions and the future, making an estimation of the future, and we also touched into doing a little live reading.
Yeah,
check it out.
Simone was kind enough to do a reading, so stay tuned for that. Hi, I'm Luke.
I'm Richard.
And this is the Spiritable Podcast.
We're having conversations about big spiritual, moral, and social issues in hopefully a more grounded way.
We talk a lot from the religious philosophy of this guy, Emanuel Swedenborg, and our own twist on Christianity. Check out episode 9 for more on that.
But of course, we don't have all the answers, so we like to bring on guests with their own philosophies.
Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, atheist, etc.
To help get new perspectives and to challenge each other's beliefs.
Everyone has some relationship with spirituality, but for some dumb reason it can be hard to talk about.
And everyone's experience with life is going to be a little different, and that's what makes it so interesting.
So, thanks for joining us on Spiritable. So, Simona, thank you so much for coming on. I'm psyched to have you. And I'd love to hear more about your practice, what you're up to, and kind of what brings you to this seat. Why join us on the Spiritable Podcast?
Well, thank you for having me, because I got a very good feeling from you guys, and that is the number one reasons why I do something. And believe it or not, everything that I do it through guidance. So whatever, my spirit team tells me to do. So my name is Simona, and I've been a spiritual healer or an energy healer for probably the past 10 years. I really didn't count when I started, because I've had gifts and abilities to perceive or look into other realms since I was a kid. So since I can remember, and since I was born. But I never really used them. They just kind of tended to freak me out, and I was the only one in the family, so it didn't really explore. It was more like a taboo, and I grew up Catholic, Italian Catholic.
Okay.
Not like, Italian Catholic. That's a very different type of Catholic. It's very strict. Certain things you don't do. But besides that, once I started really welcoming my ability, it just everything just bloomed. So I mostly work one-on-one with clients and do counseling and healing modalities, healing therapies. Most of my clients look for me to help them get over of traumas and, the type of things that prevents people from living a really happy and fulfilling life.
So I guess you talk about seeing different things. Is that like, does it feel like you're seeing with your eyes the way you would see this microphone, or the way you would see either of us, or is there a noticeable difference?
Before I accepted what I was seeing in my mind, because mostly everything comes through telepathy. So it's like a movie is constantly playing in my head, and I see that images. And to me, it's almost like having like 5-6 different screens in my head that is showing, many different things all at once. On top of that, I also hear, I have people speaking to me at the same time, and I also feel, and I also know. So pretty much I'm open all over. All my abilities are open, so everything is coming in, which explains why I had such a difficult time as a child.
I was about to say, I don't even know how it would function.
I couldn't. I was very easily to distract, but as a child, I would see things more like, really like as if it was present. So I would, beings or people that were past, they were actually right there, just like you,
So as clear as
an actual person. And actually that stayed with me all the way until my 40s. Once I started switching and my guides, I accepted my guides for coming in and talking to them and communicating with them. Then they shifted to telepathic communication, because it's easier, faster, and a lot more accurate. It takes so much energy for your actual eye to see things it's almost as if you're trying to see behind the mirror while you have an image reflected, and you're trying to see something that is behind it. So it takes a lot more effort to focus your eyes, to look through it, and your mind as well. So some people do, many people can have those type of experiences, like seeing a ghost or seeing something from the corner of your eyes that is moving, and then you look and there's nothing.
Right.
But
well, did that all start from a place of fear for you as a child? I mean, Maybe it didn't because it's your whole experience, so it's always been your
like
reality.
that. So I always heard things, I always saw things,
Right.
and then when I would communicate that, I was told that I was imagining things, I was too impressionable, or I was just making it up,
Right.
or
That's
this
probably
wasn't
hard for
not
a kid to
real,
hear. But you didn't accept this path or the
No.
life as it was until you're 40. You said, right?
Yeah, because it was looked down upon. It was considered taboo or something that you don't do.
So, you mentioned you're seeing and experiencing and hearing and knowing all these things at once. So, can you just describe what your reality looks like right now? Physically
Yeah,
right
in this
now.
moment.
Yeah.
For me, there is it depends on where I put my focus, because I've learned when I first allowed for all this to happen at once, it was a little bit overwhelming.
Right.
And a lot more than it was before. So, but thank goodness I had, guides. And my guides, I didn't learn anything that I'm doing from anybody besides the spirit team. So, now I can just shift my focus. So if I can look at you and I can immediately see your aura, so I'll see the colors, I can push that to the side and I can see whichever angels or spirit guides is behind you. I can do the same for you. And for you, over there, Ben, that is sitting over there. I know that there is a couple entities down here, meaning that spirit, ghost type of things. So there is an older man and there's a child and a woman. And so it depends on where I put my focus. I can look at things. I can start looking at your physical body and see if there is anything going on with you guys, or I can
physical impairments,
physical things like that. But you both are pretty healthy. You have some allergies though, and or I can look and see if there is any type of emotional issues. It depends on where I put my focus. I can kind of control and go into anywhere, anything that I need to know. I can ask, and it's given to me.
Right, by your spirit team.
Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I guess backing up, do you see a sort of origin to any of this? A sense of why, a sense of where this comes from. What allows?
So one question at a time.
Fair enough. I'm just trying to sort of get the idea across.
Yeah.
Do you see
the Big
an origin?
Bang or an origin? I'm not going to go for the origin. I'll tell you the reasons why.
The origin for you specifically?
For in general, for humanity, spirit beings. That's what you're asking. The origin of everything, is that what you're asking? Or the origin of spirit guides? Or
I guess I mean the origin of things above the natural. Because you can go to science and talk about evolution or the Big Bang or all that, but I believe there's something above the natural.
Yeah.
I believe in the spiritual world and things like that. Mm-hmm. What do you see as the sort of the origin of that? And in my faith,
where the spiritual world came from? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So do you have belief in a specific God?
To me, everything is possible. Meaning that, this is where I come from. Consciousness is anything that belongs to consciousness, your truth, your belief, that part of your consciousness will create a reality that in that moment is truth to you in that very moment. The moment you choose to change or adopt a new different belief systems, your reality changes, and so your truth also changes. But that also means that our consciousness, for as long as, especially in this world, in this reality of human existence, we love to define everything. We love to just label everything. Scientifically proven by everything. Nothing is true unless it's scientifically proven. Well, there are things that can't be scientifically proven, but they're also true at the same time. Mm-hmm. Like emotions and feelings. Sure, you can prove that something happens, but can you actually prove that love exists? That love is actually an emotion, it exists. We can feel it, we can give it, we can do it, but can you actually scientifically prove it? Maybe there is, I don't know. But, but besides that, certain aspects or realms are not necessarily able to be detected by scientific measures because we're measuring with parameters that are feasible for this world. Mm-hmm. But what is to say that other worlds don't use different parameters? I mean, science, as we know it, is it confines in. If you start thinking that way, your world becomes tiny. Mm-hmm. This universe is gigantic, it's enormous. There is so much out there. Who is to say that there isn't different measurements that would allow us to then, if we were to go there, would allow us to maybe see the world differently. Sort of and then, it opens your mind to other things. So for me, for as long as once I go into that belief of, yes, that exists, then I experience it. And once I had a conversation with my guides and I said, well, does it have to be that way? Can you tell me more about it? And they showed me that for as long as we have a belief, we jump into a loop of time. So here I'm going to blow you a little bit.
Okay. Buckle up.
So, because the truth is that we're at the center of everything in a way. Each one of us is at the center of time, right? And then around us, there's all these points of time, but it's not necessarily points, they're actually loops of time. These loops of times are like, they're almost, I don't want to say pre-recorded, but they are like tapes, that you jump on. And when you jump on it, because you believe it, you jump on that loop of time. And then you experience everything that is on that tape, right? For as long as you believe that, you are on that. So in the end, you ended up with all these loops of times around you. They're both part of, past, present, and future, and they're all together all around you. And you, with your consciousness, you can actually hop. Time is actually the travel machine that helps you hop into it, not necessarily, you're not traveling through time, you're traveling with time. And when you're jumping into these belief and this whatever, these bands of loops of time that have the belief system that you choose to believe, then you experience it. Does that make sense?
It sounds to me more like a consciousness. I can't say it.
Consciousness?
Yes.
State. Like time is relative in that we are bound by physical time in these earthly bodies, but spiritual time is a different sort of thing.
If you want to experience it that way. But if you're asking how we're going to experience then those other worlds, that's how you experience it. If you can look at it from, you mean that I can choose to go and experience anything? Yes. With belief, you can. So with faith, belief, and with that kind of thing, you can actually experience just about anything. But you need to be willing to let go those beliefs that may prevent you from experiencing that. Yeah. So if you believe in the devil and that you're going to go to hell if you don't behave the right way, then that's exactly what you're going to experience because you're in there. So it's like it's like traveling into a different country. You're going to experience everything that is part of that country.
Part of my senior paper in college talked about the power of human belief and how that sort of manifests itself in different cultures and societies. And I forget who was telling me this story. It might have been you, Ben, actually, about a man who was a skeptic and just, naturally very skeptical, but curious at the same time. And so he talked to this one monk or someone who was known to levitate.
I think this was me.
Was that you telling me that?
Yeah.
Go for it. You would know it better than I will then.
So story goes, guy was traveling the world to try to disprove anything above the natural. And he's super skeptical. I connect a lot with this story because I'm a naturally very skeptical person. Yeah. But I feel like everything that I learn is like, hey, how about you stop being so close-minded about everything. And I'm like, oh, fine. So he's trying to disprove things. There's a monk that everyone in the area talks about him being transcendent. And so he goes and talks to him about like what that means. And he's like, basically the monk explains like everyone always comes and asks me to like do things like, oh, levitate, oh, do this. And yeah, that's a part of it, but it's more about a state of transcendence, a higher enlightenment kind of thing. And the guy's like, well, but if you can levitate, do it. And he's like, well, I can't levitate with you here with your skepticism because my power is based on belief, and not just my belief, but the belief of those around me. Because we're more connected than kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the guy is like, okay, I'm going to stay with you and try to be open-minded and learn as much as I can. And if this is real, then you'll win me over. And
what did he stay for like 4 years or something?
I forget how long he stayed for, but he stayed with the guy for a long time and started learning what he was learning and got really into the spirituality he practiced as a philosophy and things like that. And on the day before he had to leave, I think it goes, I'm trying to remember it, they were sitting there levitating and he was meditating, sitting there meditating. Yeah. He was sitting there meditating and he was meditating with the eyes closed, and as he opened his eyes, the guy in front of him was a couple inches off the ground. And so that's how the story goes, how much I am misremembering how much validity there is to that guy's message. Don't quote me on any of it, but it was just a cool story, and I think
It just lends itself to the power of human belief.
yeah. Oh, my mind is just reeling right now because. So in one thing in our faith is that so much is based on belief and the freedom involved with belief.
Not a blind belief, but
Yeah, like a chosen belief.
yeah.
Yes.
So a fascinating example from the Bible is the story of Jesus. He's traveling around through Galilee, he's healing people, and he goes back to Nazareth. And while he's there, he's preaching in the synagogue, and people are like, "Who gives him the authority to preach? He's Joseph's son, basically. They're like, he's the son of a carpenter."
Yeah.
And so because people knew him, he wasn't able to perform miracles because of their disbelief. I think it's just a fascinating message about what the Lord, in my faith, can do for a person when they believe versus when they don't. And I think a lot of that's based on this idea of freedom. And we've talked about this a little bit on other podcasts, this idea of, I don't think that anything supernatural, and this is going to disagree with your experience,
No, it's okay.
but I don't think that, or maybe it won't, I don't think that supernatural things or spiritual things happen to people if it would
Coerce them.
coerce them, affect their freedom to believe it or not.
Yeah.
Because I think that real belief in something is a choice.
I agree with that 100%.
And so anyone, I think for me, if God appeared before me and was like, "Hey, I'm real," that would affect my freedom, because I, as I said, am naturally a pretty skeptical person and need to make sense of something before I'm willing to believe it.
And that's sorry, keep going. I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
And that's a thing I wrestle with sometimes, because I've had ups and downs in my belief, and I feel like I'm in a really solid place. And there are lots of times where I've, in my own internal dialogue, been like, man, I kind of wish I would see a ghost or something, because I feel like my belief wouldn't be coerced by that. But at the same time, it's hard to be 100% always for sure, even though I'm choosing this belief and choosing my spiritual toolkit, things like that don't happen. So this kind of leads me into my question of why you, why you?
The thing is, I think what besides the choice is very important. Having the choice to choose. It's like, that's the freedom, and we all have it. We can choose just about anything, and that's most people, what they don't realize is that they have the choice, and that's to choose whatever, create the world that you want, right? What's in the way is fear. Now, most people, if they're looking to have something proven before they believe into something, it's because they're afraid that they may, or whatever it is. And I'm not going to fill in the line. You can just fill in the line for it. Yes, there's many different fears. So if we're trying to make sure that I am correct, I'm right, I'm not going to be the derision of someone, or or somebody I'm going to be made fun of for what I believe, or my image may be tarnished because of what I believe, or the statements that I make without proof. Then that's not necessarily from a place of love, and from a place of belief. It's not a choice. That's what takes your choice away. You no longer have freedom because fear are not controlling you.
Ooh, I like that.
I mean, it matches up really well with our.
Yeah, it really does.
The whole slave of sin idea that's present in the New Testament, we interpret as like, there is this idea of freedom as in choose one or the other. But true freedom is actually being free from evil.
Free from fear.
Free from, from our faith we call it evil.
Right, but I'm linking the two.
Yeah, and so like, one way I often see sort of the negative, the evil is almost like spiritual addiction.
Yeah.
And to say to an addict, like, you're free to do drugs or not do drugs. That's not what freedom means. What freedom would really mean to that person is to get rid of that habit, to get rid of the addiction, to feel like they're free from that pull of their addiction. And I think that evil is the same way, it just functions on a spiritual level.
The thing is that, and I love, and again, I can't, these concepts are not, they're given to me, but they become they can become my belief because they actually, because they feel good and because they make a lot of sense, at least to me. But it's really a battle between fear and love. It really all comes down to. So one of my purposes, or at least my focus, is into helping people get away from fear. Because if you think about any of the negative emotions, and I'm talking about anything besides compassion, love, joy, happiness, whatever you want to put in there, anything else comes always from fear. It never comes from anything else. Anger comes from fear. Dissatisfaction comes from fear. Discontent comes from fear. Sadness, anxiety, anything of the stress, any of those, you can link any of these emotions to a fear-based belief that oftentimes is actually created really early on. So we may not necessarily know the origin. But when we are in the place of fear, our frequency or our energy being actually becomes closer. It mimics some of the spirits or ghosts, especially the ones that have not crossed over. Their frequency is, we come on the same level. So when we're more into that place, we're actually more exposed to being affected by these negative entities.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's exactly
or the negativity of other people. So when you have something within you that it's open, or at least that one of these fear-based belief systems that affect your core, your identity. It will affect your physical body, your emotional body, your energy body. We have so many different bodies, and it'll affect it all. And it's almost as if it puts holes or fissures where other people's energy can come in, or other things' energy can come in. Now, when you are good and you can keep yourself, even if you have these opening wounds, but you can keep yourself in a happy place or into a better state, which you can achieve through meditation, many different practices. Praying is a beautiful thing, breath work, there's many different practices you can actually bring everything up to, to a good place. Then you're actually bringing yourself up. It's almost as if you're taking the elevator to a higher level and you get to, breathe the fresh air from up there. Whereas if you go down into the fear space, you go down in the basement or in the subway, New York subways, which is one of the worst air possible. And you're not going to be healthy hanging out there for too long. So over time, you're not going to feel good because you're actually taking in other people's energy and you're allowing yourself to be exposed to what we call negative entities or, which is what does,
this is awesome. Oh, I'm loving it. This is so great.
I need to. Is it okay if I back us up again?
Sure, go.
Getting back to. So I have a belief that sort of anyone's philosophy is founded on their vision of a higher power, on what that higher power is. The entity that is that higher power and the things about it sort of form the foundation of everything that's built on top. So I'm trying to form a structure here, and I feel like, so you say you believe in God. Do you believe in one God, or do you not see it as needing a number?
I don't see it as needing a number because I believe in God just as much as I believe in fairy and dragons, mermaids and unicorns and things like that. So most people don't put the two and two together, but I do. I believe in God, ETs, extraterrestrial, galactic entities, call it whatever. Anybody that is from any place else besides here, I believe in it.
Okay. But do you...
Wait, I gotta ask a follow-up question. So where do unicorns and mermaids and where's all that stuff come from?
That's from the magical world.
Okay.
No. It's, well, the way that I look at it when I go into you remember those bandwidths that I talked about in the beginning? So those are like, realms are almost like portals, right? So they're almost like bubbles of energy. Because if someone believes in it, then you create it and you can go in it. And as I said, you can travel to it. It's like you go into a place as the same way as you go to a different country, right? So my belief in it, do they really exist? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they do exist or don't exist. If I believe, they'll exist in my world. Not one thing needs to be fixated.
Okay.
We love that because we need to know that a freaking mountain is a mountain, and you know
I see it and
I see it
and it's
exist, and
real.
it's like
Yeah.
you can't tell me that doesn't exist. And the sky's been blue since I've been born, and
Right.
it's always going to be blue. That makes us feel safe. Again, fear.
I wanted to talk about
Sorry.
thoughts. Did you were on a
I'm
train?
still
though.
right in the middle of something.
Okay,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
so,
go ahead. Sorry.
So I guess do you see there being something that is leading all of
All of
existence? Is there something leading the universe? Is there something with a plan? You talked about we create our reality. Is there something that gives us that ability? Yeah, I guess I've asked enough questions.
So you're looking for like a guiding force or structure
Yeah.
to this?
Yeah, is there something that gives us that power that imbues us?
I could ask you a question. I know it's not good to ask a question when asked a question, but I'm going to ask you a question. So,
Okay.
And what safety or security would knowing the answer to that question would give you?
What safety or security would knowing that answer give me?
Yeah.
I guess I have always felt like if there isn't something with a purpose, then life is meaningless.
But isn't that a concept, a belief, an accepted concept of consciousness that is very much part of this world? Especially having a purpose is very human. Like we all, if we don't have a purpose, we don't really have hope. You know, it's hard to have hope without a purpose.
Yeah.
But it's also
it
a
sounds like the
concept.
purpose is sort of like the spirit guides that lead you have a purpose in leading you. So it seems like they have a purpose and they're beyond human.
Yes, yes. And I'm not saying that there isn't a greater purpose, but the way you asked the questions, the structure, you made it sound as if you wanted to make sure that we're going somewhere with this, that all this efforts or the energy that we put in, or there is a purpose to life and to everything where we're going, right? Which I understand, and it's a good question. I'm not saying that it isn't, but I was just taking the opportunity to show that sometimes questions like that can come from a place of fear. Now, granted, it's easier for me because I've also, having had a near-death experience of and having the ability to go into heaven, what we call heaven, I can see all these worlds. So it's easier for me to actually, have something to hold on to and to allow me to let go of other beliefs. My other belief, and again, I'm sorry if I keep going back and forth, but I guess these are really huge questions.
Yeah,
and I think
big stuff to unpack.
It is, and it's like sometimes you can't just say, oh, it's this, and that. You have to kind of, because again, my beliefs are this way. And because I believe that we actually are here for a mission, like we actually we have scripted what we get to experience. This is like a playground, like being in the theater, and you've chosen a part, and you've chosen a part, and I've chosen a part, and we get to play it. Yet when we come here, we're not necessarily remembering. And the purpose of it is to just keep experiencing all these emotions, because we have, a lot of emotions that we get to experience in this type of world. So again, I don't really have a straight answers for that, but I can tell you that because we choose, this is a playground. It's not necessarily who we are really, origin-wise. And so how can we know the purpose of everything else outside of this world if this could be
Kind of
a play?
beyond our immediate experience.
Okay.
You've, let me see which one is more ancient. You're more ancient. So it's interesting. You're actually studying. It's interesting you're studying because you've actually been an architect, and I bet you that you've had inclination, or you have attractions to constructing, building, or understanding things, how they they go together, or how you like to analyze things, and you probably have a good eye to figure things out that you can estimate, and that will comes from that. But you've been many different things, or you're from many different ways, and not always here, not always in this world. Don't remember the question now. Where I was going with that? Don't remember.
It's
Hey,
fascinating.
you got guided in a different direction.
Yeah.
I have a little something.
Yeah.
You've referenced in a couple of your answers, so I kind of want to reduce this to what is maybe like a reductive version of the question, and
We'll see if it's
Sure.
useful.
So we'll see. But you said it in a bunch of different ways, basically that belief creates your reality.
Yes.
So if, let's say, a person does, for example, unicorns, says they're a person fully on board with the concept of unicorns, no one else is interacting with the world, just them alone. to like isolate it a little bit, is for them is like then a unicorn, would they have the ability to like interact with it on a natural level? Would it like then be made manifest for them? Or
they chose,
is it like because they believe it, whether or not it physically exists is essentially irrelevant?
It's both, because the thing is, since we chose, I look at it as living this life as a mission that we've chosen. And as a missions, we get people, behind the scene, our guides that are helping us stay within the missions. The purpose of the missions we may not know and whatever, but it's a mission. Whatever we have chosen to experience, we're going to need key players to give us those experiences that are already predetermined. So if it's part of your life to actually know or experience or familiarize yourself or work with unicorns, they will manifest to whatever choice, whatever you've decided already to anticipate it. Now, this is kind of goes against then, but then if I can create all realities, how can I have something, pre-chosen or predetermined? It's both. It's not necessarily, yes, we have a path, and what's often known as the Akashic record or the blueprint. And along this path, there is certain markers that will always happen. Certain markers that will never be, that those are meant to be. But then there is all these other little tangents that we can take. And we have the freedom of will. So we can choose to do whatever we want to. But eventually we'll be stirred back into whatever. It can help, so anything, even something like that, even my experience, this is something that I've chosen. Even though I was given the opportunity right after I had the near-death experience to start this work. So I was 21. I was given another opportunity to start this work when I was 23. And I turned it down. I was given another opportunity to start this when it was around in my early 30s, and I turned it down. It wasn't until 40 I was like, fine, I'll do it.
Was it fear that was turning you down?
Sure. It's just, I grew up with a lot of abuse, a lot of neglect, a lot of things that wasn't there. So, that impacted how I perceived the world. So
Sure.
I wasn't willing to accept something like a unicorn. But, somebody told me the unicorn exists, I would have laughed. I was like, let me get you a good psychiatrist. It's like, I think you need it. So I needed to go through many different stages so that I could get to a point where I could then accept that certain things could exist.
Right.
But I don't know if that's going to be like this forever. Maybe 10 years from now, I'm going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I was completely wrong about that. And, I don't believe in that anymore. Why not? It doesn't really
I like
matter.
that open mind, that humbleness.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
humility. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to... Something that you were saying earlier got me really excited, and there's so many things I want to touch on, so let's hope we can get to it all. But something you said that I feel like directly related to a part in our belief, the new church, was when you were talking about our states of being and our thoughts and experiences being affected by these different levels of spirits that are around us at all times. And, when we're in a really good place, we're around really good spirits, and a bad place in the subway or whatever, around really bad spirits. And that's directly related to a really, I feel like, unique concept of the new church that a lot of other like Christian churches don't really have, which is that our thoughts, like our individual thoughts and what's happening in our brain, are constantly influenced by where we're at in the spiritual world. It's a real trippy thought, but... yeah, there's a concept of don't believe everything you think, because our thoughts are coming from somewhere else. And though, our thoughts can definitely come from our memories or experiences or whatever, sometimes things just like float across. And based on where we're at emotionally and spiritually, we believe that we're around spirits of a similar mindset, similar values, or what we call loves at that time. And I think people can experience that for themselves. Like when I'm in a really like dark or stressed or fearful place, it's helpful for me to realize that I'm there, and that doesn't have to be me. I can choose to get out of that, and it can be really tough. I'm not saying that's always available for everyone, but it's the same. There's always good knocking at the door on the other side, and I can choose to go into that. Yeah. And so that's been a very freeing concept for me, and it was so cool to hear you talk about that. Being affected by these different things, because that's almost exactly what we think happens. How we interact with other spiritual beings, even though I can't see them.
Yeah.
But I can believe that my spiritual self is being affected by the spiritual world, because we're all spiritual beings.
It definitely is. I mean, it you don't have to necessarily absolutely rely on, but looking at it from, like, I use prayer. I've finished writing a book and about healing, and thank you. Yeah, so when I was writing about prayers, and most of the stuff that I write is actually almost everything, and what I talk about is channel. That means that someone else is giving me this information, and again, it's coming from a source that is void of limitations, like we often are here. A lot of what we call society, conformism, how we grew up and whatever has structure our thinking and our belief system. And prayer is an amazing, powerful tool that a lot of people rely on. And I think is one of the most wonderful things that we can have, no matter what you believe, no matter the religion, no matter your background, no matter the deity, no matter what, whatever higher power you believe. Prayer, everybody can go to prayer and actually, and gives you that free will to say, I need help and I need assistance, and I'm taking myself out of the way. I'm allowing someone to come in outside of myself. And even no matter what we believe, there is an outside source that does come in and it can help us. And no matter what anything else, behind it, the bottom line is that act is also an act of love for yourself. And that act of love for yourself is giving yourself freedom. You're taking yourself out of the way. You're giving yourself the freedom to say, I am letting go. I give up. I can't do this. I need help. And that act alone, that's an act of love towards yourself, because you're not making yourself do anything. You're not forcing yourself. You're not criticizing yourself. You're not judging. You're not pushing. You're not doing anything. You're just actually saying, I just need help. And that's the best thing that you can do. That's healing. It really is healing. So when you do anything, when you're thinking about doing an act of love, has so much power, the same way as a prayer does, the same as an intention to doing anything, whatever purpose may be behind it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that idea of asking for help and realizing that you can't do it on your own is so much of the focus of humility in our faith. And I'm in the middle of writing a sermon right now that is focusing on the idea of merit and how much easier our life can be when we realize that we're not responsible for everything. So this idea that, like, our actions are the good things we do are God working through us is a belief in our faith, and that when we do something good, it is the Lord, and we feel like it's us. But our life is so much easier when we recognize that it's the Lord working through us. And so it lined up a lot with what you were saying, this idea of, I can't do this on my own. Please, I need help with this, and allowing that help to be what works through you. So I was just thinking about
it works similar on the opposite sense of, sure, everyone does evil things, or we have bad times when we make poor choices, but realizing that those don't have to be us, and is a pretty freeing concept, that we are constantly the power to choose. We're not always the choice, and we are formed by our choices, but we're not always trapped by them. Yes, I think is a freeing sort of new churchish concept.
It is. It's beautiful, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, I like it.
It's very nice.
So I wanna touch on a couple things. Mostly one thing. Okay, so I think two of the biggest, we've been talking about similarities, and that's really cool. And I also like to talk about distinctions, because I feel like there's this cool idea that variety brings perfection in our faith. And so I think it's really fun to find the ways that we're all alike, but I think it's also fun to parse out, what's different? How do we see things differently? So with that long preface, I think two of the big distinctions I've seen between the beliefs you've shared with us and
where we're coming from.
Yeah, where I'm coming from, at least, is an idea of objective truth and an idea of knowledge of the future. And objective truth, you've talked about that a little bit, how like it sort of we form reality, and we think there is a God, the Lord, who from which everything is created, And yeah, our mind can make us perceive that differently, but there is an underlying reality. And so that's sort of that distinction there. But I want to focus in on this idea of the future thing, because there's a pretty strong thrust in one of the books for our church, that talks about divine providence, the Lord's leading, that talks about how people aren't able to know the future because it will affect their free will. Mm-hmm. So how do you see you've talked about being able to see the future.
Yeah.
How does your visions of the future, do you feel like, affect your ability to be free, to choose?
I don't.
First, let's hear just like how functionally does that work? Like, how do you look into the future when?
Oh,
you do
like
that?
what does that look like?
Yeah, like what does that even look like?
That's a good clarifying question.
Yeah, that's a good.
Let's start from there. Yeah, is it a situation where like you're going to bed and you close your eyes, you have to be in a meditative spot, and then you snap into it, or kind of like right now?
No,
like,
right now you can ask a question. I'll give you whatever the answers is.
Huh.
But the thing is that there is such a thing as interference, and I think that's what you're bringing in. That's what, through the doctrine that you're talking about, you're bringing in about interference. I cannot interfere with anybody's path. So you can ask questions, but I may not be able to give you the answers to it because you can't know the answer, because you need to be making that decisions on your own with free will. Or they'll tell me that I still can't give you the answer, but I can help you on what's preventing you from seeing with clarity. Because if you're able to see with clarity, then you're able to make decisions, and you make the decisions that you need to make. So I can help you relieving or releasing the blocks that are preventing you, that usually has to do with thoughts, so we're going back to thoughts, that are creating what you're seeing. Because you got to think of it this way. We're not going to always be able to see with clarity that of which is already distorted within our reality from things that happen to us, from traumas, from not being loved enough, from many different things.
Any kind of experiences.
But the outside world will try and reflect that on you, trying to show you that there is something that is not aligning with yourself. So when you come to someone and you're asking, I am stuck, I need to know what I need to do, I can help you see the distortion that is preventing you from seeing that you're believing the reflection, which is the wrong thing, instead of believing what you really are, your true self.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because that feels like it lines up with, whoever clients are visiting you retains their free will.
Yes,
doesn't coerce their future or anything.
Yeah, so I never force anything.
Right.
I'm not allowed. So they wouldn't give me information that I can't give to anybody. So the only information that I can give is that of which does not interfere.
Does the same work for you personally with your future?
They don't tell me anything about my future. Are you kidding me? I can only do it for other people. No, they show me glimpses, but usually I have to just go just about like everybody else. We got to make decisions. We have to make decisions on our own, blindly. And
so are you then prevented from, say, traveling in time to visit your future and
I
see
can
it?
ask to get glimpses, and they'll give me glimpses, and I can ask to have information, but I cannot rely on it. If I rely on it, then I'm not trusting, and therefore I'm in a fear state. And then I am going to affect my future and interfere with what I'm going to manifest. I'm going to manifest my fear instead of manifest what I actually want. Now, there is, the other interference can come from ego. Ego is our other selves, the shadow selves, as we call it. And that ego, because it's coming from our wounded self, can speak to us the way that we want to hear. And so when you're in the fear space, you want to know, yes, please tell me that I'm going to get that job. Well, of course you're going to get that job. And that's ego coming in. That's more, sometimes ego can act like an entity that speaks to you, and you believe that voice more. Go ahead, yes, make that decision. Yes, it's going to be your ruin, but you don't know that. Go ahead and have fun and do it. So that, I feel, interferes more than other entities outside. And I've worked with people where their inner child, the wounded inner child, became almost like an entity because they'd gotten so much control over the person. So their ego was controlling them because of the fear being so strong, and their inability of letting go of that was just as taken over the whole life. So people can be quite taken over by things like that.
I can tell you have a question, but I want to go back real quick.
Okay.
So you experiencing these things, traveling in time, is that just like you get a movie playing in your head of what that looks like,
Yeah.
or you can like transport yourself and physically your surroundings change?
Both. It's easier to go with like telepathically because I can just go there. I can do it while I sit here with my eyes open. Most people need to meditate and just, go into that very special state. I can just wish it. I can do it right now in seconds and just go anywhere I want to, which is really
While
nice. While
this.
retaining being able to be here. Actually, the whole time we've been talking, there's been many different things coming in and, feeling and stuff, and I got to push it
Does
out of the way.
this is a slight tangent, so give me a short answer because I don't want to go off on too much. But
Yeah.
is it more intense because we're having a conversation that's really like focused about these things?
No, not more. It's actually quite normal,
Okay,
so it's
interesting.
all good.
I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if it would fluctuate with your like conversation.
It depends on the, how much stuff. Some of the concepts already came out, which I know that whatever came out is also because of the future listeners and whatever they needed to hear. So it's part of that. It serves a purpose for them too. So even right now, as I say this, I can feel them coming in, and I just, because they're confirming that. So again, there's a lot of what I say is, it's not necessarily mine.
Mhm.
I can,
Yeah, that's great.
So, but,
Giving it up.
But yeah.
Sorry. Go for
ahead.
it. Go for
And
it.
So in I have two questions.
All right.
Okay, so the first one, going back to this idea of objective versus subjective truth, you were talking a little bit ago about our realities being distorted, and it sounded, and correct me if I'm wrong, like there is, I guess with this love versus fear thing, like there is a preferable state. So almost like a little bit of objectivity to truth, or maybe not objectivity, but preference. Like you could choose to live like this with this truth, or you could choose to live like this with this truth, and this one's better because this one's hurting you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you do believe that there is at least preference. Like one is just objectively a better way to live because you are living happily instead of living in pain.
Right. But it's as if you were told that you were born blind and you believed that you were blind, that you weren't seeing anything until someone comes along and shows you and helps you see that you actually are able to see all along. Can you tell the person who believes that they're blind that that's not their truth in that moment? Is it their choice or objective? It's like, what are they doing? They can't see anything else but that. That's what they're believing in that moment. So it's really hard to them. And I do say people are blind in that moment to whatever other reality is there. And you will react to whatever is there. And there isn't better or worse or, is it a choice? It isn't. Oftentimes we create our own jails, and that's what I help people get out of. Realize that you're looking at yourself. You're looking at the outside world from behind bars, but there's no walls around you. But you're so focused looking through that window with the bars, and you're only believing that that's your jail, that you're not able to get out of, the fact that you're really not in jail at all, that you have choices, options. You just have to look somewhere else. But if you keep focusing your head into something because that's what you experience and you fear. So, take for example, like if you have been in a relationship and with, girl, whatever or other, and you were cheated on, would you not anticipate or fear or kind of, try and check whether or not the next person would also cheat on you or not? Would you?
Yeah, it would mess me up.
That would be
For
in
sure.
your head, right? That's your first jail. The only thing you're going to see is because of that experience has taken away your freedom to see something besides that. So that's your first, like the
Wall you're
first
throwing
color glasses. It changes your perception of what you see. And unless someone comes in or you find a way, which anything out there, religion, spirituality, psychology, that's really the main goal, is to help people get out of these conundrums, these locked places that keeps them stuck in perceiving the world in a very specific way.
Last podcast or a couple podcasts ago, we talked a little bit about you're human because of the choice. Because of, if we were just good all the time or didn't have a choice to be bad, we wouldn't be human. We'd be robots. So we have to have at least the ability to have negative experiences to be able to know what good experiences are. So that makes
I agree
sense.
with you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So that both these things that he's asked has led into my other question, which was, you talked about sort of the higher entities and lower entities, I think is what you called them. Are those distinct from each other, or are they just entities and some choose to be lower and some choose to be higher? Like are
is there a hierarchy? Is that what you're saying?
Or like the fear entities, are they always fear entities? Have they always been fear entities, or are they just entities like you and I that are deciding to be jerks? Like
That's a good question. Sorry if I like that word jerk. It's like decided because that like, you just decided to be a jerk. Can you believe it? It's like that's good. I love that. Well, I may not know all because you're asking more than one thing. So I may not have the answers to all of it. I'll give you what I know and whatever they allow to come in, because of that. So it depends on, there isn't just one type of entities. Depending for each realm, for each existence of being, there is an entity, a good one and a bad one, if we're going to label it that way. Some they're a little good, some they're a little bad, some they're really good, and some they're really, really bad. So there's a spectrum there, okay? So depending upon from whatever realms are coming. So there is galactic entities that are negative that I got to deal with sometimes. There is people, there's entities that are from humans who have not crossed into the light. There is entities that come from the realms of people who do magic. So black magic, white magic, there's lots of, stuff that comes from that realm that is not so great. It's quite nasty that most people experience, actually. So like the voodoo, the black magic type of thing, that draws or creates. Now, do they exist or do we create them? That's like, to me, it's like splitting hairs, because if we have the belief, for as long as humans are going to believe in hell and the devil and all demonic and possessions and things like that, we're going to experience it. So we can't get rid of that because we keep putting ourselves into that belief. And so that will be there. That will exist, and you get to experience it. So even though I don't believe in it, if someone comes to me, which happened recently, they said they went to someone to have a curse put on them type of thing and black magic type of stuff. And I had to work in that world. So I had to take my passport, go to that world, go to that country, and I experienced the beings that were part of that belief system. But outside of that, I don't necessarily believe in them. Does that answer your question? Maybe this will give you a little bit of an answer to everything. Scientifically, they've been able to prove that. So we're going back to proof, right? So they've been able to prove that two particles that were split and they were put into completely different spaces, that whatever happened to one particle, the other one responded and replicated the same exact thing. You're aware of that,
quantum
right?
mechanic thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
quantum links.
So the two particles are responding to each other, and that means that they are connected. They're connected with energy, consciousness, or
Some
whatever.
sort of link.
They're linked. Mm-hmm. Energy, so the particles, which it's made out of all these particles, answers or responds to consciousness. Energy lives in a state of inertia until there is a consciousness present, and then it will copy and scan and then reproduce whatever is part of that consciousness, exactly. Whatever is in the front. Not whatever is all the way in the back, whatever is right in the front. So you get this mirror image of whatever consciousness is present. So therefore, everything that you have within you, every thoughts, every belief, every emotions, everything that is part of you, even of your physical being, your DNA that carries information, will be replicated exactly. If you think of it that way, and since energy responds to consciousness, any consciousness, depending upon whatever is strongest up front, then anything that you believe, you can understand how it will create it. It just responds to it. Energy is really eager to just create whatever is, the consciousness is asking them to do. And, so that's where I start from, all my belief. Once I saw that and it's part of me, it's hard to disconnect and not to apply it to everything that I believe and to say, where did everything start? Well, if it's part of our consciousness, then it will be there.
So you talked about, energy beings create consciousness. So you talked about how we put on an existence. So I would be an energy being that for now has put on Richard Glenn to live through.
Yeah.
do I return to like some great one energy, or am I a distinct being
I was thinking that same
afterward?
question.
Both. You're both part of the collective, but you also have a singular signature. You have an energy signature that's just yours. But you can take components and you can put them on and off as you please, depending upon, what you're choosing. So we can be very, very expansive. So for example, when I look at your energy frequency, I can tell you that all the codings that you brought in for this specific lifetime, same as for you. So you may not like to hear this, but you have dragon energy, especially along your spine. You have beautiful, beautiful dragon energy. You also have lots of red in your energy aura. And then when we go up into your crown chakra, you also have like almost, it's funny, you have an halo actually. So there's a nice halo. It's interesting. You're studying for that. But you have not fully blossomed into your full potential just yet. Which these colors, all these colors and all these components, you have also Archangel Uriel, which is the studying. So studying is something you're probably going to do for a long time. Research and studying and understanding and looking for, having answers to questions is something you're going to do for a long time. And the dragon and the red energy, that is more like a fire energy, is what is supposed to give you power. So you're supposed to bring all this power, and it will come through your voice. But also once you actually allow for the information that you can access through your intuition instead of through the mind and what you're reading, when you allow the two to combine, there'll be so much more coming in. And you've had instances where you've had haha moment, or these thoughts that you don't even know where they came from. That was your intuition, you connecting to to something higher.
Yeah, I mean that relates well to an idea of, so in our faith, this idea of the whole world is created by love and wisdom from God, and how we sort of, wisdom is an expression of our love. We use it to communicate love, but we can also separate it from love and have it kind of become dead, and sort of like using truth, using ideas to hurt people. Those ideas could be useful, but we're separating them from our love, so they become destructive. And when there's a big idea of marriage in our religion, both between two people, sort of the standard idea of marriage, but also marriage in yourself, between your heart and your mind, or your love and your intelligence. And so like the idea that our life goal is to find a way to marry those things again. And so that's a big thing. So
it was cool hearing her talk about intuition and wisdom, relying on love. Because I think, it was interesting hearing that, because Richard's path, there's a lot of, logic, even your skepticism leads into that, like wanting the rational explanation of things, and maybe trying to tap into what love is saying is going to be useful for you.
I'm doing my best.
You're doing a great job.
I think that very beautiful concept that you just spoke about it's the rule for everything. It's in the spirituality, it is in most religions. It may be worded differently, maybe it's approached in a different way, but that's really what it is. It is a marriage. The best relationship we can have is the one that we learn to have with ourselves. And once we actually do allow for, we get away from all the fears we have believed about, or insecurities and limitations, and we find that place into the heart, which makes us more in alignment to the spirit beings that we are, into the energy part of ourselves. That's how you access that, is when you actually free yourself of all these limitations that we just create.
But so I think a last question I'd love to know, I've been curious about, is why do you think that you, of all people on this earth, and there might be other people like you that have the same sort of abilities, but why were you kind of granted, or why was this opened up for you, or could anyone have the same thing that you have?
Anyone could. I don't know. I guess I chose it. It wasn't easy. It's not. It hasn't been.
But
easy
you did say
path.
you were born with seeing.
I was born with seeing. But the best clarity that I have on that one, and again, I don't ask a lot of questions. You would think that I have a team that can give me all these answers, and I sit there and ask questions all day long. I don't actually. I'm happy to not know. That's the thing, because that actually gives you the most peace. It's just happy to not know. But anyway. a lot of people do ask. It's like, well, what about this? 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 And the more you give and the more question they ask, especially about the future. But what should I do? How should I do it? But what about this? What about that? What about the other? So I think that interferes with our freedom of choice, knowing the future. So I agree with you and I steer away from that. I respect the path and whatever. But I don't remember.
No, I was just saying, like, were you... Yeah, why you?
Oh,
were
yes.
you granted a specific mission? Or?
When I had my near-death experience, I actually was in a car accident. I was driving a moped, going to work. I was already a nurse. I was 21 years old, and somebody hit me. I don't remember the accident at all. But I remember having this experience where I was completely in the dark, and I felt this void just kind of come over me, and this heaviness, and then being pulled into like almost like this vortex of light, and then all of a sudden it was just really, really, really bright, and it was blinding me. And around me, because there was so many lights, I couldn't really see specifically, but there was all these beings, and it kind of freaked me out. Now you have to understand, I was a very matter-of-fact, black and white type of person back then. I only believed in very certain things, and I just that's it. So when I saw that, I was like, what the hell am I? It's like, this is not. But then they started, talking. They weren't really talking because they didn't open their mouth. So they were talking in my head. And I was asked, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And then followed by that question, they showed me what not what I would be doing, but what I would be leaving behind, and what would happen to the people that I left behind if I didn't come back. And I was heartbroken. Yeah. So I was like, no, I'm going back. It's okay. I got more to do. I'm going back. And so I chose to come back. And it did change me when I came back. I was a slightly different person. I had a pretty big head trauma from it. So it took me forever. It took me a whole year to recover, actually many years to recover. But that kind of led me then to more into this path, even though it took another 20 years, almost 20 years to kind of really embark it. But it really started then, more.
Wow, that's powerful.
So,
thank you for sharing that.
No, you're welcome. So to me, it's not that I was chosen or was granted anything, or I guess it was something that was maybe predetermined, that this is who I was going to be for this lifetime. And and we do get to choose our roles. So I wish I chosen like to be like a Queen of England or something. I like that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Wow.
But no, it's been enormously fun. Being a healer, once I embarked on this path, is everything. It's just been so much smoother and nicer and just amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, well, I'd love to have you back on again sometime in the future, because I'd love to talk more about healing, what that looks like, and coding. We didn't even get into that at all, and that'd be really fun to talk about too.
Hopefully this will be a quick question. I don't know.
No, I'm sorry.
No, I just don't know how big a
wormhole we're going to go down.
Yeah, and there's nothing about how you answer it. So the original energy beings, like myself as an energy being, where did I come from? Have I always, because you talked about me being more ancient than Luke. Can energy beings create other beings? Like could someone else have created Luke just after something else created me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that all come back to like a divine energy?
I've talked to planets, the beings of one planet who became one consciousness, who they evolved so much they became one consciousness, and they call themselves the collective. There's more than one collective, but that you can evolve that much. When I look at them, is it one or is it all? It's both. Someone can decide to, think of it as a particle of waters and the molecules of waters. When you have a glass of water, they're all together right there, right? Is it one or is it all? It's a glass of water. It's full of water. But if one chooses to spin off and go do something else, and discover who they are in life and, the meaning of life, they may choose to do so, and they can. They can come back and join the collective. There is no, I need to be separate or together, or there's no concepts. A lot of the concepts that you experience here don't necessarily, I don't want to say they don't exist, they're not a choice outside of this world. So love is more of a permanence. When we go back as being of light, there's more of a state of love. You also have access to so much more knowledge, a whole cosmic knowledge when you go back there. So you don't have these questions because you already know them when you go back into your spirit self. You know, so I can't wait to go back there. Then I'll come back and tell you. You know.
Yeah. So with that creation, then, so does it start from? Is the beginning then different collectives that then decide to spurn off individuals? Like if Richard's more ancient energy than I am, was he an earlier part of this collective that then that collective decided to form me?
Well, you got to remember that if time is all around us,
Right.
which one came first? The past, the present, or the future? If we can all access at the same time,
Right.
which one came first? What did we create it first? Because if I also exist in the past, in that past, I'm not aware of myself now, and I'm not necessarily aware of myself in the future, but which one came first? Am I more ancient in the future or more ancient in the past? I can actually, if this is actually those people who
More of a
have,
circular time model.
yeah, it's like when we get away from thinking of linear time or thinking that time actually is a value, it's not. It's a portal, like a time machine. You know, it's a portal. It helps us connect to other points. That's the most important thing. But there's people who actually, while they sleep, they may have very lucid dreaming of feeling as if they're in another place altogether. And for those of you, if you guys have ever had an experience, yes, I'm talking to the viewers, that have woken up and had to reorient yourself because you didn't know, maybe you were just ironing clothes or you were just cooking or you were someplace completely else and you felt that, you're like, where am I? You have to reorient yourself. You've actually you hopped into another parts of time of you, and you connected to that consciousness and you lived in that moment or connected with that consciousness. And now you have to, I don't know. To me, it's happened so many times that it's like sometimes I wake up and it's like, wait, didn't I just finish making dinner? Why am I here? You know, so.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So that kind of explains that if I can connect to something that, and oftentimes I feel that those are parts of me in the past, in another past life, because I can see the clothing are different, the environment is different. You know, I can recall a lot of details, those lucid dreamings that a lot of people have. You got to think about it. You're actually connecting to a part of you that is still existing because even though it's part of the past.
Well, and sort of to bring it full circle to something we talked about in the first couple minutes of this was trying to apply a natural earthly metric to something that doesn't fit those standards.
Yeah.
So like, because we can only experience on Earth time in a linear fashion, that same metric isn't going to apply to the cosmic or spiritual, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to kind of bring that back around to what we talked about.
It does. It's probably why I bring it up, because I think all of it, connects, all these beliefs, they go kind of together, you know, and to me, they create the reality that it's right now. It's very much part of my life.
Sorry,
Did we want to do stuff you
let's do a little
about?
bit of a reading or whatever. If you feel anything coming to you, no pressure at all. But
All right.
I think that'd be fun for anyone watching or listening in.
All right, so let's start. Since I did a little bit for him, let's talk about you for a little bit, all right? So, so I'm going to look at your energy first, and I want to see so you actually have a lot more blue. You have a lot of water, so a lot of emotions, but you also tend to, the water type of feel that you have, especially in the upper part around your shoulders and neck and going up, that's about, all about freedom. So the word freedom is actually very, very important for you, for your life path in this lifetime. This is also where you're also connected more to your galactic self, or the parts of you that are galactic, than more other parts like the angelic, that you have a little bit ancestral. You have a past life with the Native American Indians. On this side, you actually have a spirit guide that comes in the form of a warrior. So that comes in on your right side. Sometimes you have the tendency of not necessarily fully going forward with decisions that you need to make. You tend to doubt them and think about them a little too much, and that's when that comes in and tries to help you into staying focused and not, because you tend to have a lot of ideas. I see all these wonderful ideas, excitement, you get excited about it and you want to, but all this busyness sometimes it prevents you from really focusing into what you really want. So it's a way to prevent you from making a mistake. So you just don't want to make a commitment into something solid that then may turn out not to be what you expected. And that's something you've had since you were 6 years old, 6 years old. There's something you tried around that time when you were a child that, or shortly after when you started going to school and you felt like you were being compared, or you have a brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and, being compared to either a brother or has something to do with you and what you've felt that you were lacking or not being good at that is keeping you still locked into this.
Interesting.
Even though you're lighthearted about it, you're not really making a big deal. So you're like, you're cool, man. Cool. You're like the cool man. Everything is cool. But underneath, there's a lot more that you can do. So you actually have writing abilities within you that I don't know if you already started writing or if you've had the bug on it. Did you go to school for like journalism or writing or anything
Both
like
of my
that?
parents were English majors, and my
Nice.
dad's a journalist, and I've always enjoyed writing, but I've never committed
Yeah.
something to
You
it.
want, how old are you? About 20, 23?
24.
24. Okay. And
I mean, you do write pretty often.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
You've written,
But you
like,
haven't
300
found the
raps.
purpose,
You're
right.
writing most of the shorts we shoot.
yeah, so right now it's just more like a play, like child's play for you, the writing, because you're just doing it lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not making any commitment again. That will come around when you are about 32 or so. Now, here we're talking about future stuff, so you're getting specific because it's important for you to know that so that you make different decisions. Because right now where you're at, you're not making the decision that you need to. So this type of information is given so that the person then shifts their consciousness, changes the way they feel about themselves, and therefore you'll be able to make the right decisions and choices for you that are more aligned to your better, your better path. But you're going to be writing up to 4 books, and 2 of them are going to be novels. One, I think, is going to be a self, like something about you.
Okay.
And then the 4th one may just be like something you put together. I don't think it's a self-help, but it may just be like it feels more philosophical thoughts, or things that you acquire throughout life. You're also going to be traveling a lot. So this kind of thing, this is going to go really well for you guys, by the way, and it's going to lead to other things I think I was saying that to Ben, it's going to lead to other things. Yeah. So,
Cool.
And that will lead to, your traveling later on.
Well, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
That's really special. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wow. That's exciting. Look at that. No, that's really cool. Yeah, I definitely resonated with a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's
I don't want to go
super
much further because I can go into the details,
Sure.
and I don't know how much of that, and I don't want to push, I don't want to put it all out.
Okay,
and
yeah. I mean, whatever you feel.
But you have a
called
girlfriend too, right?
I do.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
What's her
she's
first name? You mind? Or can you whisper?
Brandy.
Okay.
A very loud whisper.
I
Yeah.
just want to make sure I connect to
Yeah.
her. She's lovely. Very, very sweet. Very nice. Treat her well. She's a jam.
She is a jam.
She
Yeah.
is a jam. She is very patient with you. My God. So treat her well.
Oh man.
That
That's
is-
That's funny. All right. Oh, this has been so much fun. Wow. This is I'm like firing all cylinders. I feel great. This is been a really, really, truly special conversation that I'm going to remember for a long
Thank you.
time.
This has been absolutely entertaining. I thank you. I don't
Good.
get a lot of people to ask questions. I always offer, ask questions. I love to ask.
Really?
questions.
I feel like people would
Yeah.
I feel like you'd be tired of answering questions. I
No,
feel like
because
ask
they
them all
just
the
give
time.
me stuff, So you actually ask questions that I never even thought. I was like, wow, they're really pushing it. And then at one point they said, no, we're not going there, and they're not talking about that. So I guess it's, they're not going to have the ball.
You
back.
got it.
Sorry.
But that's
Push
okay.
too hard.
Yeah.
No, it's just, sometimes humanity is not ready to hear certain things, so we can't really give it out.
Guys, thank you for tuning in and listening to the Spiritable podcast. We are up on every podcasting platform: TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, all of that. Watch us on YouTube to see the video version because there's fun stuff on there.
Yeah, if you have any comments or questions, you can post it under our YouTube or send us an email at spiritablepodcast@gmail.com.
Go on Facebook. Check us out at Grand Human Project. Also on Instagram and Twitter. We don't tweet that much, but I mean, gotta do what you gotta do. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.